What if you could step away from your business and everything would keep running? What if retirement, reinvention, or simply just taking a break was a choice and not a crisis? I'm going to be talking about optionality and why this might be the most important thing that you can really build in your life. Optionality is the freedom to choose your path, even if it's off the beaten path. And where I developed this concept was it comes from, in finance, options. Options give you the right, but not the obligation to buy or sell security. And optionality is really all about having choices. And so in life and in business, having the power to move when you're ready, not when you're forced, is the key to everything. And personally, I never wanted to be in a position where I was forced to do something for financial reasons. And so optionality is all about creating those options, creating those choices, having the flexibility to live your life and do the things you want to do based off what's really important to you and not being forced into that, again, for financial reasons. So in options trading, basically how it works is when you're buying options, you have a limited downside. It's known at the beginning the maximum amount that you can potentially lose, but you have unlimited upside. And that's kind of the secret, or really the advantage of doing that. And so I like to take that concept and apply it to other areas of life as well as business. And it's really about a way to create asymmetric risk and reward. And that's exactly how we want to position ourselves, both in life and business. So if you can put yourselves in situations where you have a limited and known downside, you've defined the risk, you know what could happen, but you have a much more significant potential upside, that is optionality. That's asymmetric risk and reward. That's a situation that you want to put yourself in. So when you have this optionality, taking advantage of big opportunities becomes much easier because you've defined the downside, you've defined the risk, and you have a way to minimize that. And without it, though, it can really feel like you're kind of boxed in. Small risks might feel large. You have no margin for error. And so you really want to create that margin, which helps allow you to weather, kind of the uncertainty, the volatility, the variability that might come from taking that action. So at the end of the day, optionality really allows you to bet on yourself without having to gamble your entire future. So most firm owners don't have optionality. Their business relies completely on them. They haven't built a lot of wealth outside their business, and they're too caught up in the day-to-day to really step back or plan for what's next. And so they might be considered successful. They might have a good business, and they might be well-renowned, but really they feel stuck. And so without that optionality, retirement might feel impossible. Time off feels risky. Selling the firm or potential secession feels overwhelming or just not feasible. And at the end of the day, you're not planning ahead. You're not making decisions. You're really just reacting to circumstances and what comes your way. And so, one example that comes to mind is, one of my clients, is 60 years old, has been an architect his whole life, really enjoys that, but is getting to a point where he wants to slow down a little bit. And he hasn't built up very much wealth. His business isn't really worth anything. He has to put in all the time and energy to keep the business going and to make any income. And so he really doesn't have a lot for options. And, as we started working together, really wanted to figure out, okay, well, how does he want to live his life? What does that look like? What is it going to take to be able to achieve that from an income standpoint, an asset standpoint, a business standpoint? And once we're able to define that and set some clear targets, it became much easier to develop a plan and strategy to be able to achieve that. And so the goal is to be able to basically do a complete turnaround in a 5-year period. And then, from there, be able to sell his business and get bought out over the next several years. And in, an 8 to 10 year time frame, be able to completely change his financial situation from being 100% dependent on working with minimal assets and wealth built up to being completely financially independent and being able to fully retire. And That's what optionality is about. And so in his case, it's about being able to slow down and step back from working and ultimately fully retire. But for you, it could be just having choices. Maybe you want to take some significant time off. Maybe you want to kind of be outside the business in such an active role. And so be able to have the firm run itself and operate without kind of you managing it day to day. And so there's a lot of ways that you can create just having the options and the choices of what you want to do from there. And so that's what this optionality is all about. And what we need to do is we need to design a business that can thrive without you. That comes from strong systems, a leadership team, repeatable processes, and ultimately knowing your numbers. And so profitability, cash flow, margins, all of that are a big part of it. The second piece is really about building personal wealth beyond the business. And so again, if you're 100% dependent on your business, what happens if the economy slows down, your biggest client leaves, you have some projects start and stop, you want to build personal wealth beyond the business. And so that looks like investments, retirement accounts, tax planning, having diversified income streams. So your future isn't just tied to one income source. And the third piece of building optionality is about creating overall flexibility in your time and your finances. And so from a financial perspective, it's all about having that margin. It's all about having a gap between your income and your expenses. That margin gives you a lot of flexibility. And so early on, maybe a lot of that goes to saving. Maybe later on, once you've done a lot of that saving, that could be just additional spending or for maybe travel or kind of bigger objectives. But you really want to define your lifestyle goals and build towards those. A lot of times people don't take the time to really plan out what they want their life to look like and define what it's going to take to do that. And so they end up just doing things and they do stuff, but are they really on track for where they want to be? So if we can create that flexibility in time and finances where, you're not so reliant on trading time for money, you have margin in your finances and your wealth, well, now you have a lot more options. So when you've done this, it really leads to peace of mind, minimal or no financial stress. You've got confidence in the future. You've got space to breathe, reflect, think, ponder, and the power to say no, which is a big one. I mean, one of the biggest attributes of business success is really being able to say no to things that don't align to what you want, your beliefs, or how you want to operate. And when you can say no because you're not desperate, you don't have a scarcity mindset, it opens you up to say yes to more of the right opportunities. And the more you can do that, the better it's going to be. So optionality is not about, quitting or necessarily retiring per se or exiting. It's really just about having choices and having options. So you can keep working, you can keep building, you can keep, on the same path, but it's on your terms. And so again, you've switched from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. You have the ability to pause, to pivot, to reflect, to really align your life and what you're doing with your vision and what you ultimately want. So just like in investing, where an option gives you the right, but not the obligation to, buy or sell, having optionality in your life gives you leverage without pressure. And so you have the ability to gain the upside and the potential without having to risk everything to do that. And so this is what ultimately I help my clients build. It's all about creating optionality, all about creating choices, creating freedom. And you don't need to follow the same path as everybody else. You can design your own path. And at Off the Beaten Path, we help people design and find their own path to that optionality, to that freedom, to that ultimate life. So if you'd like more information, check out in the link below. I've got some additional information there, and we'll see you on the other side.